Bienvenidos, and welcome back to Vox Terra. I want to thank those of you who have subscribed and supported at Patreon. It really keeps the morale up. Today we hear all kinds of calls in our media and by our especially Republican politicians for more oil and gas drilling. But today I want to highlight for you the source of emanation for those calls. I want to paint for you a picture that's almost the opposite of the picture that's painted by what I call the reckless elements of the business community. That is that climate change is some type of a conspiracy put out by environmentalists to take freedom away. Au contraire, we can portray the conspiracy as more likely the opposite. Start by highlighting a sympathetic Fox News article, sympathetic to Republican calls to reopen the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, actually, let me point out it's not really a reopening at all, but rather an opening in the first place of a pipeline that's going to carry the most dirtiest, what NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council, calls the most dirtiest form of oil, tar sands oil. And here's a CBS News article titled, "Nearly all GOP governors call on White House to reverse energy decisions, boost energy production." Well, these Republican calls echo the calls of the American Petroleum Institute. But does the media highlight that? From the API website, an article March 4th of 2022, "The administration should clearly commit to the continued export of crude oil, natural gas, and refined petroleum products. The Department of Interior, along with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, should swiftly approve all liquefied natural gas applications." And it goes on, stating the Department of Interior should issue final notice of lease sales under the current 5-year offshore oil and gas leasing program, including in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, the next level down from the American Petroleum Institute and obvious industry sources are these things called think tanks that receive sponsorship from them. One example, often cited by a group called Desmog, is the Heartland Institute. And look at this title. "Biden lacks understanding of oil's contribution to civilization." Lacks understanding of oil's contribution to civilization itself. And listen to this phrasing they use. "The same guy who just released a 3-day supply of crude oil for America from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve also terminated the Keystone XL pipeline." They refer to the President of the United States as some guy. Now, would they have ever referred to President Trump, who is a major booster of the oil and gas industry, as some guy? Well, Desmog, a group that gets very little attention but specializes in exposing these ties to the oil and gas industry of climate change denial, states about the Heartland Institute, it's a Chicago-based free market think tank, and it has been at the forefront of denying the scientific evidence for man-made climate change. The Heartland Institute has received at least $676,500 from ExxonMobil since 1998, but no longer discloses its funding sources. So here we have all these so-called think tanks, PR organizations that are not even disclosing their funding sources, putting ideas out there, picked up on by so-called conservative media news outlets sympathetically. And I say so-called because you can call yourself conservative, but are you really just wrapping your fossil fuel deregulation agenda in a conservative cloak? Well, in addition to this massive media machine that goes unreported, untalked about in our mainstream media outlets, is the campaign contributions from fossil fuel interests. Open Secrets is a great resource for looking at that. Led by the oil and gas industry, this sector regularly pumps the vast majority of its campaign contributions into Republican coffers. Even as other traditionally GOP-inclined industries have shifted somewhat to the left, this sector has remained rock solid red. Well, who in the media, when we hear these Republican politicians calling for more oil, is even bothering to expose their ties? And yes, I know it's not just Republicans, but it is citing Open Secrets, mostly Republicans who are locked down by that oil and gas industry. Well, don't lose sight of the underreported facts of why groups like the Natural Resources Defense Council, so many Native American tribes and environmentalists have opposed these pipelines and opposed an expansion of oil and gas drilling. That Keystone XL pipeline is scheduled to bring what are called tar sands from Alberta, Canada, to the U.S. Tar sands, according to the NRDC, are one of the most carbon-intensive sources of oil. Pipelines risk contaminating our groundwater. The oil and gas industry in general and refining and the burning of that product results in the volumes and volumes of toxic waste, oil leaks, oil spills, and the burning of it of dangerous particulate matter, including carcinogens. Yet all of it is largely underreported. And in addition, we are putting around an average of 40 billion tons of fossil fuels into our atmosphere each year, which contain known heat trapping or greenhouse gases. I've shown you that ice melting at the NASA website at our polar ice cap. I've described for you the extreme weather that this heating planet and that melting polar ice is kicking in, the changes in disease vectors, and the emergence of new diseases. Our climate is becoming destabilized. Our atmosphere and our soil and groundwater are being pumped full of dangerous toxic chemicals, all to defend business as usual. And by opening up more drilling and building more pipelines, you are committing more money to that industry, which can then use that money to then sponsor politicians and sponsor media outlets. Well, I hope you found this video interesting, helpful, and if so, please make sure you're subscribed and you've become a supporter of Patreon. And until next time, as always, peace be with you.